Do what we do.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Bad Batch Companion Series. I am Pixel Nick and I'm joined as always with your boy Mikey. How you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, buddy. How you doing?
Pretty good. Came off just like a fresh rewatch of this episode, and I'm pretty amped to talk about it. This one was good, and I feel like we segued pretty well from the last episode here into this, and we were kind of pretty spot on with how we thought this might pick up.
Yeah, that's what I was like, we figured out a couple things, and then it was like a really good episode though. A lot of action, got some answers like you said. Finally got Crosshair back in action.
Yeah, and I did enjoy the. There's just something about, I don't know, Camino. It's just so clean, and it lends itself so well to the animation style. Is because like when they were walking through the hallway, and you just got like their boots and the helmets, like it just looks so clean, and it looks really realistic, especially in like those kind of environments for whatever reason. But it started off right off the bat, like just looping him back in, and I know we've been waiting for him to show back up.
Yeah, when because I waited till today actually to watch it, and when I saw that it was called Reunion, I was like, oh, that sounds promising.
Yeah, that's a giveaway in itself. It says Reunion, so it's like there's only so many reunions they can have. So here it is. They ended up squaring off with their fellow batch member, ex-batch member, friend, now foe, enemy, hunter being hunted. But yeah, overall, I mean, great episode. They filled in a ton of things for us that, like, obviously we speculated on, but we're pretty sure about, right? So, like, we know the Kaminoans hired the bounty hunters, so they hired Fennec. They confirmed that for us. They confirmed they're really only after Omega. They're not after, they don't want the batch. They don't really care what happens to them. So, yeah, lots of good fill-in, right, where we're kind of, like, felt left hanging a little bit, but, in hindsight, it's a lot of good character development too, to get people, specifically Omega, to the point where she's at. There's, got good scenes with her. What's that?
No more running, right? Like, we're on the run, help build those, filler episodes. Now this episode, they kind of, nowhere to run.
Right. Yeah.
And had to face the music in this one.
Yeah, most literally. And that's kind of been like the theme too, is, Hunter's kind of been playing it safe, trying to keep his squad safe, look out for everyone's best interest. And it's really a lot of really kind of luck, the whole time. Like, they haven't really had a target or a mission, right? This whole time. They've just kind of been a little aimlessly going about the galaxy and just kind of getting into stuff. But like, this is where we're picking up from basically the first episode, where they're kind of back into their drama. They haven't really had much drama here and there, but like ever since really Fennec, they were chasing after Omega when Fennec tried to get Omega. Since then, there's been a lull, even though they acted like they need to find out who Fennec is and like who hired her. They still really didn't do that. So now they're definitely kind of cornered into this drama that they're inevitably going to get in.
Yeah, we see like kind of their story kind of coming back into it now, right? Like we see the Empire,
right,
with the release, Crosshair and the replacements, and then even more, right, dropping a whole lot of people after them, and then like you say, we even get another bounty hunter after Omega, right? So we even not just people after Omega, but we get, that they were coming, they're after the, the Empire's after the batch. So,
and that's really this kind of like first scene. It starts off real fresh here, always looking good here on Camino, and you get the new batch, Crosshair's batch, kind of walking through the halls, and Crosshair basically goes into, he kind of bursts in on the bosses, and he's just like, hey, they detected a power surge from this old starship, right? And we have Rampart here, and he's just kind of send like a scout or like just someone to go deal with it. And he's like, no, we're gonna need more than that. And he's like, it's Clone Force 99, and we kind of get Lama Su here, the Prime Minister, kind of defending it, like kind of playing it safe, trying to say like they're valuable, they're skilled, like they would be a good asset to have alive. Keyword. That he wants them brought back alive, and Rampart's just kind of like, nah, don't really care about them. Crosshair, if you run into him, just kill him. So that's where Lama Su, that obviously does not line up with his agenda, because as we know in like an upcoming scene is they reveal that's their primary objective, is to get Omega back specifically. And then from our last episode, we kind of speculated that, this seemed like a likely trajectory, looping back in Crosshair because they got spotted and they're like, alert the Empire. And they kind of filled in some things for me in my mind. I was like, well, how are they going to fill the time gap here? Why would Hunter and the team be on Bracca for long enough for Crosshair to catch up with them and them kind of get stuck here? And they did that in an interesting way. In that, and they also kind of covered some other angles here. So, it turns out Hunter and Tech were kind of more interested in Wrecker as well, interested in like, they can get loot, they can get weapons and different stuff out of this ship and sell it, right? Sell to Sid, break even with Sid, come out of that debt. And Hunter's kind of like playing this game where he's trying to figure out like, what do they do? And Echo's kind of the one that's opposing this, and he's kind of not opposing it, but he's not necessarily for it. He's like, we're not arms smugglers, like we're soldiers. And we kind of had an interesting setup there where, I think Echo kind of sees the reality of the situation where Hunter's kind of avoiding it. And I don't know, when that's finally going to click, because I feel like this whole past couple episodes, Hunter hasn't really been that definitive leader like he usually is. He's really lost in this, and now even like his own squad mates are kind of pointing that out to him, like, dude, like we need to do something.
Like I said, like he said, he knows they've been doing missions, but he does like you say, he doesn't really seem to be concerned that they'd actually, their shit's gonna catch up with them,
Yeah,
so,
and
he's just kind of doing like the skills that they do have to survive. Like, hey, we're not arms smugglers, but hey, we have the skills of them, so this is what we're doing.
They stumbled upon an opportunity, so they're going to do something with it. Even though that's not necessarily the best thing, because in this situation, Hunter, who's normally the good leader and has that perception, that's his one unique trait, is that he's highly perceptive about things, and he's just not as perceptive as he once used to be, because he does not have that clear defined path for himself. In this situation, them staying on Bracca has led them directly to a lot of trouble in this episode. And a little bit before that, we get a cool scene where Wrecker is teaching Echo or Omega how to defuse a bomb or a grenade or whatever it might be. Pretty sure it was like some kind of bomb. Yeah. And, he did the cool little bit where it's just a smoke bomb, but like freaked her out and was going to cut that. So you get some like good back and forth there. But you also get this point where we're getting another, like, they're teaching Omega how to do things. And kind of be a complete asset to the team. And I think that's a lot of what these episodes leading up to this point have been, is they're building her character up, which I think was pretty important, instead of just kind of throwing a character in here that really doesn't have a lot of utility, and she's turning out to have a lot of utility.
Yeah, and you kind of see she's almost probably more soldier now. But like they kind of do a good thing with like Wrecker where you show you can still have that innocence and be in the action and stuff. But yeah, like you said, like we say, the couple episodes are slow and stuff like that, but definitely, once you get to point now, you know what I mean. Definitely you start paying off. So her character development and stuff like that.
Yeah, and and it kind of moves on, and they spot these scrappers kind of spying on them, and they're pretty skittish. They just like took off running once they realized that the Echo and Wrecker were onto them. So cool little chase scene there, and I just always like seeing Echo in action. I think his gear just time and time again is like badass. I love his gear set. Just like the way his helmet is set up, real narrow visor. He has that like duster on. He just looks cool to me when he's in action. And he's just like, he's a hybrid as well. Like between kind of like tech, crosshair, a little bit of hunter. He's just a great utility. Yeah. Glad he's here. And that's another bit here is we get to see, and it's going to be throughout this whole episode, we get to see the like inside the ship, the Venator, and this is like heavily just brings me back to like Clone Wars and like episode 3, the Revenge of the Sith. Not to get confused with like episode 3 of this season, but I just love these ships, and we get to see a lot of the inside of these because we get them kind of like going through the halls. They go down to the armory where they're getting the weapons. Tech goes up to the bridge again. We're up there before, and he's getting data intel because they're going to sell that as well. And there's a cool bit there where he calls Omega up to help, and she just kind of personally just asked like, what was the war like, and he gives this super technical, like this was like like the mission was this. It was like a multi-front war with a singular objective. And she's, well, what was it like? He's like, I just told you what it was like. Like it completely went over his head. So that was cool. But that leads us to the whole proximity alarm going off, and she picks up on that. She's like, what's this? And he's like, oh, it's a proximity sensor. Must be a malfunction. And then we get 3 shuttles, our assault shuttles flying overhead, and I think we all know as viewers who that is, apparently. And this was kind of definitely the end to the last, like 5 episodes as far as flow goes, innocence, or even like direction. This is the point where it changes, because like Crosshair's back. We're right back to the in danger that that they are inevitably in this right now. And I don't know, I just felt like they did that really well and set it up, and and it's just so cool how they're separated too. Like they're off doing their thing. She by herself goes up there to help, and they're in this very like open kind of free flow setup, and then that's all over. Like this is where it's all about to change. Not sure like kind of if you got the same vibe there, or
no, I felt exactly like the same thing. Went from almost right, like the sense of closing in. And then same thing that we were talking. Even when like you kind of like you said, like oh shit, it's about like they're done. Hunter still kind of seems like, okay, let's there's another way out. Like what I mean? Doesn't really seem like no, it's just nope. There's always another way out, and then it kind of shows you, like we talk about the visuals of what they go through to try to find another way, right? You even get kind of a classic. It's usually like a dam or a waterfall, right? Where they show the heights with Wrecker running straight to the, showing you the lengths of what, they're like, no, man, like we're trapped, Hunter.
He does have that like real kind of casual, like we're just gonna get out of it, like it's just how it's gonna work. And
like I mean that one visual we're getting where they're running, it gets almost like they're scaling a cliff, right? But they're in the engine, but it's just showing you like what they're having to go through
Oh,
You
that's
know,
yeah. That's
you
a good
know,
point. Yeah, like they're scaling the dam
yeah,
or some
yeah. Like
those.
I feel like these ships are so large, but I felt like visually, like it's the same as like they're on the side of a cliff just scaling. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. And
yeah,
that engine is like suspended over air too, and they kind of
yeah,
they use that. So it's
yeah,
like literally like once you realize that, it's
yeah,
like literally what was your idea here? Like
yeah.
how were you getting out of this?
Not to jump ahead too much, but Omega, like me and the girlfriend, we laughed. We were like, she's like, "What do you mean we're gonna fall?"
Yeah.
We're like, "Yeah." She's like, "All the way down there." Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Like this is a bad idea. Like how did we get
yeah,
here? How did
like
we
we
get in
said,
this
almost
situation?
like with the last one, where you almost felt like you were in like a swamp in this ship.
Yeah.
Now I felt like this was almost dealing with like in caves and tunnels and stuff. Like,
Right. And
you know,
it's just the way it's like kind of wrecked there. It's like kind of at this like
yeah,
caddy angle.
yeah. So it kind of show you just, too, like you get kind of like the classic, like Star Wars, running through the halls kind of, right, compactor, but showing you too at the same time, like, right, like this is different than just the halls, right? They're scaling, like I said, almost scaling cliffs and, like Wrecker almost ran right,
Right off the deck.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that reminds me about the trash compactor from the first Star Wars. The
yeah.
creature that like came out and got Wrecker, it is the same creature.
Is it?
Yeah, it must just be like a much bigger version of it, but I saw somewhere where it is the same creature. I didn't think it was because I didn't think that trash compactor monster was that insane, but I guess maybe out in the wild here in the big
Yeah,
junkyard they get much bigger, which might make sense.
yeah.
But yeah, and this is another thing is like I you know I I'm into the Lego Star Wars sets and I love
Mhm.
building these ships, and I have the books that have the breakout diagrams of the insides of these ships and like the specs on them and everything. And I just like seeing, even though it's crashed and it's like trashed, it's still really cool to me. The way they move through this ship brought back a lot of memories from like episode 3, because they go to like the artillery deck and there's like very very like sound cues that are tied there. So it was an overall great episode in that terms too, of like visuals, the scene, the setting. I loved all that.
Yeah.
And then so while that's going on, the shuttles kind of fly overhead and we kind of go back to Camino, and this is where Lama Su is talking to Omega's handler, Lana Se, or Nala Se. And this is where they're kind of saying the Empire, we need to kind of get things going here, get our phase 3 underway, and basically get Omega back. Confirming just that's what they're after. They Nala Se confirmed that they already hired a bounty hunter, and she expressed that, and Lama Su is basically, yeah, but it doesn't matter who or which bounty hunter brings us back what we're after, as long as one of them does. So definitely just confirming stuff in there, and they're still kind of working out of the Empire's direct eye, though. Back in the scene with Rampart, they're that scene opened up when they walked in the room, as he's basically really exerting his like pressure over the Kaminoans. Like he wanted to know everything that's going on there, and everything goes through him, and he's kind of right now trying to take over quite a bit as far as operations there, but they're still trying to secure themselves with the Empire, move forward with this phase 3, and the key to that is getting Omega. So basically they're alluding to they're hiring more bounty hunters.
Mhm.
Interesting, right? There's always lots of options there where that can go, and
Yeah.
we go there. So we jump back to the ship, or Barca and or Bracca, and Crosshair lands with 3 of those shuttles, right? He's got his like little battalion there. And I did pick up, I feel like I didn't notice this before, but maybe because it's with the rest of the clones, they have the green visors, which the black with the real dark green visors. That's basically, it was like another episode 3 callback, and that's what like the Kashyyyk troopers had on the Wookiee planet. Those were the ones with Yoda, and that battalion, which they had those visors, and it's just a cool look. It's not like the standard black visor. I just noticed that his batch there had those. But yeah, Crosshair's he's ready to roll. And this is also, we get to see where he is still, his batch is the recruits, effectively early stormtroopers in clone armor. And they come out and they're basically like, oh yeah, because of the interference on the planet, we're not getting any readings. And he's like, no, let's not be dumb. Like we're being jammed. And he's like, so that means they're still on there. So let's move. Basically they set out, and, very quickly we get Hunter and them. They're kind of just devising their escape plan, which, like you said, isn't really much of a plan. It's more like, we'll just get out of here. So, Hunter already knows they're on the ship, and Echo says they're going to do a certain tactic so we can just kind of zigzag the halls and avoid them. So they're kind of doing that. They're doing a little game of cat and mouse. Tech hacks the comm channels of Crosshair's crew, and they kind of like know what they're doing. Crosshair gives out a false indicator there where he's like, push them to the hangar, we'll pin them down there. And basically, I mean, Hunter is like, after hearing that, he says, we'll cut through the artillery deck. And as soon as I hear them, I just think of that scene in episode 3 where the two capital ships like line up Pirate of the Caribbean style and just like are blasting each other side by side, and you get those cannons, and that it's a very distinct sound, and we get to hear it in this episode, and I loved it so much. Did you think of that when he said that, or at least when they got there, because it should look familiar?
I was gonna say, I didn't remember, because I'm not as familiar with, say, like the episode you said episode 3, right?
Yep. Yeah.
But I did say something to my girlfriend watching it about the sounds. I was like, oh my God. It's like, it sounds exactly. Like you said, when the cannon, I did remember. Yeah. But I couldn't remember which one exactly. But yeah, I did the sounds exactly. But yeah, when the cannon fired, I'm like, oh yeah, that like.
As soon as you hear that, if you've seen episode 3, you should just about associate that correctly. And it's such a good sound. Like with a lot of good sounds in Star Wars. But yeah, ultimately, like very quickly in this episode, I mean, when I rewatch it, I was pausing even to like take notes, and I was like, this is moving fast. Like there really isn't much left, after this, or even to get to this point, which I did like, but they're packing so much into this with just very quick, like scene to scene, We jumped back to Camino just when needed to fill it in the little bits there, and it really kept it going.
Yeah.
So we get to this really crazy scene on the artillery deck where Hunter just kind of assumes they're going to sneak through here and they're going to get out. But Crosshair instantly just surrounds them. Like there's probably like 30 clones in there, plus most of Crosshair's batch. And yeah, we kind of have like a standoff here, and they're completely surrounded very easily too. And this kind of just shows you where the batch versus the batch, they're, you can't really avoid them. And it was, I think they did their best to kind of outmaneuver Crosshair, but Crosshair just knows everything they're going to do. Yeah,
I like how too they even did the little where like they hide and they're like, oh, they're coming, and their 4 walk by. And then okay, I think it's clear. And then it's just like it wasn't even clear at all. But even that little thing, I was like, it made me think of like when they're going like A New Hope. I know they've probably done it in a bunch, but it made me think of like that. And then even like that last little bit, Hunter even is like, oh, see, the coast is clear.
Yeah, no, that's a tight A New Hope call back there. And at first I was like, on the first watch through, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. The clones are just gonna walk around the corner and not look down the other hallway. Like that's just not how you sweep a ship. But on the second watch, I was thinking, well, maybe that was because that was the plan. Crosshair was like, don't engage them and just kind of make them think they know what they're doing. So I think that's might have been what it was, because I was like, there's no way like like that's just not how any military operation works as far as like sweeping a ship.
Yeah, because I didn't know, but that's what like I think said to my girlfriend we were watching it. It's like they made me think of like the original Star Wars, like
Yeah.
with the stormtroopers just being
Yeah.
completely inept. So,
Yeah, that's another great callback.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, and like you said earlier, like this is the narrow corridor section. We're just kind of navigating the halls. But yeah, there's like 4 or 6 of them. They just kind of marched right on by.
Yeah.
And maybe, that's just also a nod to the fact that like the clones are, they're no longer being led by Jedi. They're no longer being used like they should be. And the Empire just gives out very straight commands, and they're kind of becoming these dumbed down stormtroopers. Very expendable, very not tactical like the batches.
Yeah, and I think like we're saying too at this point of the show, like it just showed like Hunter thinking like they can get out of this without a gunfight, right? Like,
right.
It's and and kind of ironically, right? Like it ends with a gunfight,
right?
More ways than one, right? But like it's literally like after that little scene, it's boom, and it's finally there's nowhere left to go, right? You're literally in the crosshairs, of,
Yeah, because, and it's not to say, like, Hunter's been doing a bad job, but he hasn't been doing, like, his job. And you get that with the Echo conversation. He's just like, dude, like, we need to just be soldiers or whatever. And like you said, like, basically all the way to the end of this, Hunter's like, no gunfight, we're getting out of here. But he gets met with exactly a gunfight.
Yeah. And, like, it's like Hunter knows what to do. It seems like we said at the beginning, like all the time, right? But now it's like, well, without an endpoint,
right?
Like, he doesn't really, what to do. And I believe once a gunfight, so doesn't one of them say like something like we should have? I told you we should have went with Saul, or something. I think
Rex, Echo,
Rex, yeah, not Saul. Yeah, my bad. So like. You said, like we're soldiers. What did you, like?
Yeah, and he
being.
Yeah, and Hunter is like Rex is on a different path, and Echo's like, I mean,
yeah,
what other path really is there? He's like, it's better than like what we're doing right now. We're just kind of like trying to make ends meet and just do little missions.
Well, it's like look where we're at. If we had gone with Rex, would we be like
they would have completely avoided this situation.
Yeah. Like I think it's him telling Hunter, "Look around, man." Like,
right. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
he's like, this is and maybe this was a missed opportunity, but nobody in this episode said, "I have a bad feeling about this."
Yeah,
Echo should have said that when they were like, "Oh, we're gonna stay." And get these arms, get the weapons off of the ship and make some money. He's like, I have a bad feeling about this because like we are here way too long.
Yeah. And then when we get there, like Crosshair, it doesn't even, you don't get the feeling like, hey, just, come just surrender and it'll be peacefully. Like, like when you see it finally, like, oh yeah, here's the action we've been waiting for. Right. Like, and it's exactly what happens. Like, you don't,
Yeah. So yeah, they're having this little standoff on the deck. And Echo and Tech, they're kind of like cutting a plan. Wrecker drops a good line. It's like, oh, nice to see you too, Crosshair. That was just a nice tone there, right? It's just like all business, like whatever. Crosshair's being a dick right now. But Omega and Hunter try to level with Crosshair. And this was an interesting scene to sneak in that I didn't think they would be able to get. I mean, I knew they would sneak it in there. But it's just interesting kind of how this scene, like, I did feel like it kind of carried on a little bit. There's like, they could have just like killed them and it would have been over, but obviously that's not very climactic. But, Crosshair is standing there and he does like tilt his head. Like, it's like he's thinking about what they said as far as like, you're being controlled by the inhibitor chip. Think back to the brig when I told you it's not your fault, right? Kind of like trying to level with him. Yeah. But then he just goes, but then just doubles down, and this is my moment where the chip was talking, and he's just like, aim for the kid, right? So he just doubles down, and the chip, like, just, I assume, just fully kicked back into gear, is like, listen, don't defy me, like, kill them. So,
and I don't know, too, if it was supposed to be, because obviously now that we know the Kaminoans were sent to people, but it still shows that the Empire doesn't know what Omega is.
Right.
Too.
Not at all.
Right?
Not at all.
Right.
Yeah, because Rampart was like,
Yeah.
a rogue group of clones, like they're traitors, kill them. Just they're not worth my time.
Yeah, not to jump ahead, but especially when I see what happens, I thought that was definitely to show that, the Empire still doesn't know. Had they known what was in front of them, they would have made sure.
Yeah, it would be interesting how they would even deal with if they knew what Omega was. That would run up the chain so quickly. I feel, I don't know. That would be like a Tarkin special. He'd have to intervene directly as soon as they find out who Omega is. I see Rampart kind of being like pushed to the side because that is Omega to me seems like just a top tier alert to the Empire if they found out what she is and what the Kaminoans plan to do.
Yeah, and now that we know it definitely was like the Kaminoans and not a third party, right? They definitely, when they let it happen, were willing to see what happened if she wanted the Bad Batch, then let the Empire even know, like, hey, they might have, you know what I mean? So the fact to me that the Empire is still in the dark on her is, pretty big too, Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it's a nice division of interest too, because that way the Empire is just verbatim, like, let's just kill everybody. And that lines up with Crosshair's whole arc too, right? He's just he's out for revenge, or at least to complete the mission, and that's to really kill the Batch. But Tech and Echo, they cut this plan to basically make the cannons fire. And it's noted that if the cannons fire, that would basically crumble this rusty, busted deck. And that's the plan. That's the plan. And like you said, there's another one of these like ridiculous escape situations where you're scaling the dam, you're jumping out of like a window, you're near death. Here we are going to fire these giant cannons, collapse this deck that is rusty and just looks like a giant tetanus ordeal waiting to happen. But they get to that point and basically the first cannon fires and just knocks Crosshair like straight across the deck. The whole thing starts to crumble and collapse. Most of the clones kind of get like wiped out. We get to see Omega using her bow much more effectively. She takes out like 2 clones, I think. And there's just like a big mess of things. And most of the deck collapses, knocks out the clones, luckily. The Batch gets to dodge most of the falling debris. And they go to run out of the room, and we're met with one of Crosshair's Batch members, squad mates. It's the one with the flamethrower. And Wrecker just throws the torpedo at his head. Gets overly excited about the direct shot, but more he's so excited when he those little things happen in his day. But yeah, we get to this part where, like you've been saying, they're scaling. They're like trying to escape through the ion engine, right? And that's even where they're like, I know you said to go toward the engines, but I did not realize we were going out through the engines. And Tech's like, I couldn't have made it more clear. He's like, that's where we're going. So, even within the team there, they're showing with a little bit of dialogue there that they're not just, they're not all on the same page. They're like, oh, I did not realize we're literally going out of the engine. Like, this is the situation we're in. Like, this is rough.
Even for us, right?
It's the Bad Batch, and they're scaling out of the engine.
I think, what was it? I don't even, but when Wrecker's like, Plan 7, they're just like, it has nothing to do with it's showing like they're completely out of ideas, especially when Wrecker's throwing them out, right?
Right. Yeah. Plan 7. Let's see here. I saw an idea about that. Yeah, it obviously has no like real use because they didn't use it, and we didn't get really to hear what Plan 7 is. But it is interesting. On a channel called Star Wars Theory, he suggested that could be a callback to a game called Republic Commando.
See, I must have watched the same one as you then. Okay. I never played that, but I saw that same thing.
Yeah, a lot of the batch is modeled off of those characters in that game, and I've been replaying that as well recently. And the sniper in that game is called 707, and they call him Sev for short. But essentially, that could allude to like there is some sort of tactic plan that is like counter sniper fire, because when they get onto the engine here, Crosshair is once again waiting for them and is like trying to snipe them as they leave the engine bay. So they're pinned, right? They either go back or they go out, and Crosshair's out there and he's a sniper. So the potential theory there is it was some sort of like counter sniper maneuver.
I couldn't remember the name of the game because when I was looking up the character that we're going to talk about shortly, I saw that video, so I watched it, and I couldn't remember the name of the game. I wanted to ask you because they do show the footage from the game, and that does look very much like later on.
Yeah,
when we get that footage through.
Yes, yeah,
and it does look very similar. And then the one character's mask does look very Bad Batch.
Right. Yeah,
so I would not be surprised if wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and there's a few Easter eggs to that game that are kind of baked into this episode, and particularly the very last scene, which we'll get to, and that was such a good one. I'm glad they tossed that in there. But Crosshair's waiting for them, trying to snipe them, and he turns back. Well, previously, when Crosshair kind of came to and was getting out of the wrecked cannon deck, artillery deck, and also I like to note he once again shows kind of like the clones are now so disposable, right? He just kind of asks for like a damage report. Doesn't really care about his fallen brothers as clones usually do. So like once again, we're showing another situation where that is stripped away from how the clones now operate, which is quite sad. And that really ended with the last season of the Clone Wars. But Crosshair had sent one of his squad mates up to the bridge, and he said, just hold on, go up there and just wait for my order. Well, his order is to turn on the ion engine, which is pretty intense. And even Omega acknowledges, she's like, Crosshair wouldn't do that, right? And it's like either they jump out of the engine, out the back, and get shot by Crosshair, or get melted alive by these ion engines.
And this is where they're like, we're going to fall. She's like,
yeah.
Down there.
And that's the wild plan. And this also reminds me of episode 3 again, because the plan is to attach these thermal detonators to the ring casing where the thermal diffuser or whatever, basically it's like a heat, keeps the heat in from the ion engine from just like blasting and melting everything because the way the ships are designed. But that's where she's like, so like it's like what Tech said it would break it away from the engine, and she's like, and go down there and just fall. And when we see that, because ultimately that's what they do, and Crosshair's like
plant one.
Yeah, and Crosshair's walking away because he thinks like it's a done deal. He's like, they're about to melt, like, and then the ring explodes and it starts to fall. And this is where it's like a couple things for basically in episode 3 when Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and the Chancellor are escaping on the Separatist cruiser, and they're like in the elevator, and the ship is like destabilizing in the atmosphere. Okay. So they're like hanging on in the elevator, and the ship keeps like changing its like orientation. And this is what happens in this engine as it falls away. And then also in the fight on Mustafar in episode 3, where Obi-Wan and Anakin are fighting, and that piece breaks off and falls into the lava. That's what I felt like when the engine fell and just like landed.
This must have been because you've said episode 3 must be pretty heavy, because what ends up happening gave me an episode 3 vibe with Crosshair.
Right.
With Anakin, right? Because like
this whole episode is like a huge callback to episode 3. There's so many things that are like used in it, and it's just so cool. And it's reused, but it's done in a completely new way. But that whole sequence of the engine falling was just completely Mustafar scene where they're fighting.
I gotta admit, I didn't quite see Crosshair's fate going this way,
Right.
Like, so I especially too, I was like, oh man, I was not expecting the episode to end with this engine doing some damage.
Yeah, so like in the end of the day here, or the end of the episode, what happens to Crosshair is like this engine falls off. The heat from the ion is no longer like contained or focused, so all his troops and him get like blasted with this ion to the face, and he's basically like melting. Like it was a good. They did it well, showing how much in pain he was, and he just kind of like took a bad hit, and he was able to tell him turn the engine off, but he just like passed out.
Yeah, damage was done.
Yeah, he was really roughed up. And the shuttle comes by and picks him up, and they start kind of bandaging him up and stuff, and they need a medic, yada yada. Meanwhile, the batch fell down, and when the engine landed, it broke into like two halves, and one rolled down one side, one rolled down the other. Omega and Hunter in one, and Tech Wrecker and Echo in the other. So they radio, and basically they're like, let's get back to the ship. Let's just go. So that's happening. And then basically we get like a revived Crosshair. And he kind of comes to as they're kind of like mending him up. And he's just like, they're going to their ship. Like, we need to get him. So they try to radio the clones that were at the Marauder from earlier, and they're not responding because simultaneously Hunter and Omega show up at the Marauder, and all the clones are wiped out. Yeah. Hunter notes that this wasn't scrappers. Yeah. And this is just super suspicious. And then, this isn't the work of scrappers. And then we get a voice.
We're getting someone.
We're about to get a reveal. And we're putting together that we're getting the bounty hunter that Lamassu has now hired to go do the job. I did not think it was gonna be Fennec. So I knew it was gonna be someone new, but I did not know it was gonna be this person. And we get that voice that just says, wasn't much work at all. This character is very full of himself, but he is also notably the best bounty hunter in the galaxy during the Clone Wars. Because after Jango Fett died, that was Jango Fett. And right now it's presumably here at the big reveal, Cad Bane is standing there, and he is technically probably like the best bounty hunter there is. Interesting, the Kaminoans they wanted the job done. They weren't hiring just anyone. Yeah. They had intent that they were like, we need Omega back now. No more like playing games or just like waiting for it to happen. That's why they were like, we need to accelerate like getting this show on the road. So they hired the best of the best, and we get the desperado himself, Cad Bane, in all his glory. Yeah, this is the first time you've seen him, right?
Yeah, like I told you, I had to look up and see who it was. But obviously, because I'm not going to lie, almost like when they're like here, I was like, no way, it's like, Solo or someone. You're like, I already knew, you know what I mean? Yeah. But once I saw, obviously, I was like, oh, he's going to be a gunslinger. And I thought, I'm like, this whole time, just like we were talking about, it's going to end with a gunfight, right, for Hunter. Yeah. Not quite the gunfight he imagined, right? Boy. No. It was a gunfight. Really good scene. It's great too, like how they just switched to Western, like real quick, but it didn't. It flowed real well, fit, and you get it very much Western.
Get the music.
It's
it's like the lighting changes, like it's all just very. Very dolled up to be this Western callback. And, that's what The Mandalorian mostly is. And it's very aware that that's what The Mandalorian is. But this show is not that. But for this moment, The Mandalorian was shining through because we were having a classic, like, Star Wars gunslinger standoff. Like, end of Tombstone, right? Like, we got Doc Holliday versus Ringo here.
And I like the dialogue, this whole time we've been saying, right, that these are enhanced clones, right? And he's like, he'll kill a clone, how many clones or whatever, and he's like, a clone's a clone, and Hunter's like, we'll see, and he's like, yeah, we'll see. right? Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah, and because he's like, once you figure one out, you figured all the rest out, and
yeah,
I've
yeah,
killed so many.
yeah. So like,
And you're kind of and it's open though because Hunter is very skilled, and we know this. He's not an average clone, so you're like, maybe this will go okay. But if you know Cad Bane though, it probably is not going to end with Cad Bane losing because Cad Bane doesn't often like miss his mark.
And for those who don't know quite as much like I do, when I looked him up, he is the guy who put the dent in Boba Fett's helmet. So especially I didn't look until after I watched it. So then I'm like, well, yeah, but you kind of have a feeling, right, Hunter? But you're going to see, like, well, is Hunter right? And is this just a quick cameo or something? But no, Hunter, and
effectively, I think you can take a very broad stroke and say that Jango Fett was the best bounty hunter in the galaxy. When he died in episode 2, it was then Cad Bane. And you get to see Cad Bane throughout the Clone Wars. So the Clone Wars period, Cad Bane's the best bounty hunter. Up into this like post, he's still the best bounty hunter because Boba Fett at this time is still young and up and coming. But then Boba Fett is the best bounty hunter in a post Bane galaxy. So we are definitely seeing Bane here in his prime. Maybe a little aged, a little weathered, but he is still just as deadly as always. And he's pretty clear on his target. He wants the kid. He's like, we don't have to do this, but if you want to do this, we're going to do it. And Hunter, obviously, not aware of much of the of the open galaxy out here or bounty hunters. This isn't Fennec Shan either. So they have this standoff, which is just great. Hands by the pistol, by the blaster. And I believe Hunter drew first or attempted to make the move.
See, it's probably right there. They're probably trying to get you into like a Han and
Who shot first? I can't recall who shot first, but I do know who shot better. Hunter's mark. He hit Bane's little assistant droid there.
That little droid, real little good comedic relief. He only had a few lines, but I don't know, just a scene where he's like, "Oh, you're in trouble now."
Yeah.
We both laughed. It was just a good scene overall, but it was just those droid moments that are part of Star Wars.
That little droid compliments Bane Cad so well because like he's so serious, but he is funny though too. Like he's got a confident humor about him, but then you got like the goofy humor where it's like, you're in trouble now. It's just stating the obvious, but Cad here puts a decent blaster hit right to like the chest, like he's aiming for the heart. Surprised he didn't hit him in the head, but he goes down.
Yeah, he's down.
Hunter goes down hard, and then he just stuns Omega. Cut that scene. Yeah. We just assume that she's gone, they're gone because I believe mixed in here somewhere like that was the crosshair scene, but we get that somewhere in there. Before this point, we get that the respirator like revival of Darth Vader, very Darth Vader-esque, like survived.
Because when he gets burned and the way his body falls, like I could tell his legs were there, but it kind of looked like when he's becoming Vader and his legs are gone. I'm laying on the kind of looks like a cliff. Yeah. But then when they show him there, I'm like, oh, Crosshair's gonna get, a kind of even more.
He's got the head wrap. It's like this eye's messed up. He's got the respirator.
And like his eyes are like real right for a sniper too. So now he took some damage.
Yeah, I mean, his eye was a different color. It was like a yellowish.
But he's still alive.
He's still alive, and he's in charge for now. And
still isn't complete as well.
Yeah, and this is like the turning point for his arc because he, it looks like the damage is pretty severe. He's not a sniper anymore. Like if that damage is like done, he might look to be washed up in the eyes of like Rampart. Like what's the use of a crippled clone? Like either we're going to rebuild you and spend resources and time because we think there's
Yeah.
something of value in you, or just kind of get rid of you because we don't really care. So,
Yeah.
I mean, he has his own, like, his story right here just like took a turn, and like I'm not really sure where it's gonna go, and it's interesting because he's gonna have to go back and, well, he doesn't have to, I guess, but he's gonna have to go back to the Camino and like explain this to the Empire, and effectively he failed in the eyes of Rampart. He didn't complete his mission. Once again, clones kind of suck in the eyes, like as far as Rampart's concerned.
Yeah, we kind of see, right, even like, you know, all the bat, even on the opposite side, all the batch members are kind of just, they all right, they all took it on this one, from, you know, the bat Hunter, Crosshair, and the guys, you know, from then, you know, like we said, we get that scene where you kind of wake up from Hunter's view, and it's still not over. The guys are trying to drag him into the crew of the ship, you know, and they're under fire. And I really like, that's the scene we're talking about. They said it might be from the video, like the video game, but very cool scene to see out of Hunter's, you know, helmet. And
that was such a great way to end the episode.
Yeah,
you know, because we kind of just phase into that scene from literally inside Hunter's helmet through his eyes, and it's Wrecker grabbing him, and like, where's Omega? There's Tech. They're like, they're all kind of like yelling at him, and you know, they're firing back. They're obviously like being chased by the clones, and it's a firefight, but it's all from like Hunter being dragged onto the ship, and he's just completely disoriented. Everyone's really kind of in a panic because one, Omega's missing, two, they're getting shot at. Hunter was just like shot, almost dead. Like they probably thought he was dead at first.
I think they even say like when you kind of, when it would pick up the scene, but it's Hunter coming back, and I think they say it's like it went through his chest plate is when maybe it was one of the first things you said, you know, letting you know, like, it's, you know,
and that's you
know, done.
Yeah, and I always attribute this back to like the whole when Doom, the movie, The Rock, you know, when they made that movie and they did the whole first person shooter bit there. You know, this is just the ultimate evolution of just putting video game elements in shows, movies, and this was so well done. Obviously, it's a cartoon. It helps a lot when you just can make it look just like a video game. But it was just it was such a good time to use it too, because we didn't get it in some sort of campy like shootout action sequence. We got it in this very different perspective, and this is also what that was from that game, because in that game you're part of like a 4-man squad and you give orders to your other squad members. Well, if you get shot and like taken down in that game as the player, you can tell your squad to come revive you, and basically like you're inside the visor, and like when you're revived, like it shows you getting back up, and like it has a little, the game's so cool because when it's raining or you get like blood or anything on your visor, it has like a little laser wiper, and that's what it made me think of, and it was so cool to see that used. So glad they did that. Filoni's a champ.
Yeah, he knows his shit, because it was that was a very good scene, and for those that before I even knew anything that it might be, you know, that correlation.
Yeah,
but I was like, man, you know, they are not wasting their visual capabilities.
No,
you know what I mean, like at all.
Right.
And just like you said, like it kind of, you know, you see, you know, the video games, and it felt kind of like I haven't played that, but kind of like a Call of Duty when you're, you know, it's like boom, boom, right? And you can kind of feel like, you know, you felt like you were in Hunter's helmet, and you know, like shocked, you know, like wounded and stuff.
Right.
So just really like just a really good scene. But
and he caps it off with basically saying like he took her, and Wrecker's like, who, Crosshair? He's like, no, bounty hunter. He's like, we got to find her.
Yeah.
And this is where I really was trying to think about where this goes, because we got last episode so well. This one I wonder now, because will Hunter and the batch, will they go back to Sid, right? And kind of
they need help, right?
Would they go back to Sid to try to regroup, get that kind of help, see what she can do? Or are they going to go like right to Rex? Or are they going to go see Saw? Like, this is where the story kicks back up.
I'm thinking Sid, because Sid would probably have to know some bounty hunters, right? And I'm thinking,
for sure.
I'm thinking that they probably will get a bounty hunter to find the bounty hunter. They're gonna have to get some help, right? They maybe could go to Saul, Guerrero, or Rex, or something like that. But they need people that know, like.
I wonder if they would try to track down Fennec, because they know of Fennec, and really that's the only one that they know of. So I wonder, it'd be interesting to see if like they go back to Sid and they're like, "Hey, that bounty hunter that was after us, like, can we contact her?" So could they get with Fennec, who then could bring in Boba, because they're tied?
Because when you said that, and I'm like, well, if they go back to her, what if she's like, I can't, but.
We still don't know if like Fennec and Boba are a team yet.
See,
they are in the Mandalorian, and that's like 40 years later. This is still so early.
And that's what I didn't know either. When I kind of like, well, I'm thinking they'll need a bounty hunter to find a bounty hunter, and I was like, well, maybe this would kind of help, Fennec's story a little bit or something. Or I was like, I think I asked you, I was like, you think we could get Boba Fett in an episode? Especially with the Book of Boba coming out,
it would be
months, but
it'd be smart to hype up Boba.
Yeah, that's why. But it'd be sweet.
Pure hype factor for Fennec to be in the show already, and then to bring in Boba at some point. That would be really smart going into the Book of Boba Fett later, just to redouble down on those characters from the Mandalorian.
To bring in, Cad Bane, who has some history with him and is this badass, character, maybe, it'd be cool to see if they did bring it in,
Right. Yeah. So Boba, I mean, from a story wise, I don't think it's like necessarily needed. But for Disney and like marketing, it might be smart to do. But I definitely see Fennec coming back into the loop, because I don't know why they would introduce her character for that one episode.
You know what I am just thinking now? So they who did they technically do a solid for? Jabba. So maybe they do name drop, right? They're like, Jabba would be very something. So maybe we don't get Boba Fett. Maybe maybe they get information. They go to Jabba's place, maybe.
And that's the thing. And I mean, that's probably a very nice setup for this exact moment, is because we've had so many little setups, right? Far. We have Fennec. Yeah. Will she come back? We have Saw. Will he come back? Yeah. Rex. Will he come back? Yeah. Right. So those are the big, like, exact character bringbacks for a second episode. Or do we get one of those and then expanded into another one, like Jabba or an Ahsoka or a Boba? Like, do we get this spiral where this story is really going to just start picking up?
You could easily, when they roll up in there, have the, what's it called? What did they save?
The Rancor?
Rancor.
Yeah.
Show the Rancor have that relationship with Wrecker, right? Like run up almost like Dogwood or something.
Yeah,
maybe so Jabba and them bid for would be inclined to help give them information. It would be a nice, probably since we've already had Bib Fortuna, it would be sweet for me. Like I would love that if that were to play out.
Yeah, so there's just like a lot of second episode for a full story arc comebacks that we have set up so far. Where else?
The Martez sisters, right? They're still could be in play, right?
That's a Rex tie-in. So like that's to me that's a whole Rex. So like Martez, so it'd be like Rex. We might get the Martez sisters. I don't think we'll get them again. But Rex ultimately leads to Ahsoka. That's a big. I mean, they could go that route too, and to me, that just sets up like a big tone for the rest of the season. Now being firmly in the second half of the season, they have some big direction to pick here, and I just don't know what that's going to be.
So I do remember you too, the brief subtle of him telling Rex, no, we let the Padawan go. Do you think, what was his name that they let go? Do you think
Kanan?
Yeah, do you think like it, because it almost is like they want you to forget about him enough to where
right
it could, or do you think that was just a first episode, just kind of, to show Hunter just you kind of disobeying the order, or
right? I feel like Kanan, Kanan's younger self there is gone, and that was just for use to tie Order 66 and this story into everything. I don't see him being used again. I'd be surprised. I don't know how they would either. Because Kanan, like most Jedi, would have gone very far off the radar and into hiding. They're all those characters. Jedi are so scarce in this time because of that reason. Because they can't, like, a Jedi can't just pop up and start being a Jedi because the Empire is going to be on you so bad once that's a thing.
See, that's what I'm just trying to figure out, because like you said, like definitely too, they need help, right? Because they obviously Tech and Echo smart guys, but the leader is right. The decision maker ultimately is down.
Yeah,
right? They gotta.
He seemed pretty. He seemed pretty aware though. He was. He seemed fine at the end too. So I don't know what his state is.
Yeah, I guess he wasn't like, but I think there's someone coming. Like they gotta, whether they go through Sid and or there's just like you said, they go through someone coming back. But I think they're definitely a good they left it off a good cliffhanger, like good leaving off point.
And I was thinking too, and this goes back to another video game storyline. I think it's the only place it occurs. I'm not sure if it occurs in like books or anything, but in Battlefront 2, the one that came out in 2005, there was an element to that story to where the clones like rebelled. There was like a bad like regiment of clones on Kamino, stationed on Kamino, that rebelled against the Kaminoans. So there was like a clone uprising, kind of like a Spartacus type storyline where the slaves uprise and try to overthrow their owners. So I don't know if we'll get some sort of rendition of that into canon with this, because we are on Kamino.
Yeah.
We know that the clones' days are numbered as far in the galaxy, the story here. So the clones are going to go away. So are they going to incorporate some sort of clone uprising into this? And will that somehow tie into like Crosshair's story or the Bad Batch's story here? Because ultimately Omega's going back to Kamino unless they somehow intercept her in between. But I'm pretty sure Cad Bane is going to go right back to Kamino. So that puts Omega on Kamino, and this puts the story heading toward Kamino eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. We're probably going to get, they're going to have to take it down from the inside, sort of old, right? Star Wars feel, I think. But that's, it's going to definitely have to end up there.
And kind of like last episode, I always do wonder. So like last episode, we kind of speculated whether or not like, were they going to still be on Bracca? Or are they going to leave? Like, how's the pacing going to go? Like, we can get another episode here on the planet. And we did. So this next one, are they going to spend some episodes trying to get help? Or are they going to go right back to Kamino? Because are they going to leave Omega in the hands of the Empire and the Kaminoans for an extended period of time?
Mm.
Like, how many episodes are we going to go through before we see Omega again?
Yeah.
Now I'm guessing it's going to be like 2 or 3 episodes before, maybe 2 episodes before we see Omega, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe after like kind of really failing, right?
Yeah.
For the first time, maybe like we said, this focus that Hunter hasn't had, and now Omega is gone. So maybe we get an episode or before they head there. You know what I mean?
Right.
To probably, I would say she's probably won't get intercepted because we're finally probably going to find out what is really going on with Omega before the batch gets there, right?
True.
So I think, they might, whether they get help or just kind of go to Sid, regather, formulate a plan, because they'll probably need some kind of help, I'd still say, to go, to get, in the Camino and pull off whatever, get Omega, out of there.
Well, that's a good point because Omega's not going back to the Empire. She's being secretly brought back to the Kaminoans. So she's going to be relatively safe for at least a couple episodes, I think. So maybe it might be 2 episodes. We might see Omega with the Kaminoans, but before the Batch sees her, it might be 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah. And that's what, like we said, she's very intuitive, seems to know more than even she realizes, but she still doesn't know everything, about herself, that the Kaminoans,
right.
So I think we definitely are going to find out, I think, her story before we see the Batch executing this, break and entering and,
whatever they plan on doing.
Yeah. Because I think they kind of will have that. They're going to have this moment, like, hey, what are maybe kind of like where we're saying, where they were telling them, like, no, hey, I'm telling you, we might see Tech and Echo sit Hunter down and be like,
right,
hey, we've been trying to tell you,
True. Yeah, so
they're going to have to gather themselves, right? I mean, they're going to have to.
Yeah, it's gonna. So we got 6 episodes left, which puts us in 2 arcs, I would say, about worth. So there's gonna be this regroup arc, I'm guessing, where it's 2 or 3 episodes where they're regrouping. We're refooting ourselves as who the strike team is, right? Who's all gonna help the Batch? Because all the way back early on, they're like, we don't have friends, we don't have allies. But that's what they've been doing. They've been getting friends and allies.
Yeah. And I'm gonna guess some way that Crosshair will already be in the inside.
Yeah.
Whether he's there getting his kind of papers from Rampart, you know what I mean? Where, hey, we don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
Or the Kaminoans are doing the some kind of experiment. Kind of making him putting his sniper rifle as his arm now that he's right. Or something like that. But I think he will be on the inside. And the way I think we'll end up seeing him probably assist the Batch getting Omega in the final, kind of a redemption arc for him.
Yeah, but we'd kind of discussed a few companion series episodes ago.
I think he will. I don't know.
They might all die.
Yeah. Because, that's what I kind of see. Like I said, I can see where they get her on a ship, but they explode everything around or something like that.
Omega can live.
I feel like the bombing, how they bombed the thing, I think that kind of could come back and play. Kind of how I know it could be a call, but where Wrecker's like, hey, how about Plan 7?
Oh, right.
I think when the final thing, it could come to the explosions, especially since he was showing Omega how to do one.
Yeah.
I think that kind of will come in play somehow.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for Omega can make it out of this series. I'd be interested to see how they allow any of the Bad Batch to survive. I think they're all going to die. And if they're all going to die, on Camino, with some crazy, I don't know, maybe this is how they do it, where ultimately the Kaminoans piss off the Empire and the Empire just bombs them to hell, and that's the end. I don't know.
And it's curious too, what if it's a good chance before the Batch gets there that the Empire finally does find out that Omega is something, right? So then we kind of, not only do you have the Kaminoans obviously not wanting anything to happen to her, you have the Batch coming for her, and then if you have the Empire coming there too, it's gonna have nothing. It's gonna have to be explosions everywhere. Like,
yeah, maybe they'll mass like, and this is where like the whole rebellion thing could come into place as far as like the clones. Maybe they like find a way to mass correct the inhibitor chips, and they get all the clones on their side. I don't know.
I think it would definitely make sense that the Batch would sacrifice themselves if, say, like, if it's between the Empire getting Omega or them getting her on a, some kind of pod and, and explode. I think, getting
her out of there.
Yeah. And then they got to explode the Death Star pretty much. Like, but they're
a nice Rogue One ending, just blown up on the beach.
Yeah.
I don't know. It has a lot of ways it could go now. And especially just in between now and then, like after talking, I'm pretty settled on like 2 to 3 episodes of assembling the team. And then we're going to get some sort of crazy 3-episode like finale arc, which might end up being tragic for most of our characters here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't see this ending well. It's going to get bad, especially with the Kaminoans being shady. Like, that's going to piss the Empire off.
Oh, yeah. And they're definitely, too, like, they've done a good job, like we said, of building those character bonds and stuff. So when you see whatever happens to the Batch, like you said, they don't make it out, they're definitely going to have a scene where Hunter says goodbye to Omega. So they'll probably be trying,
Big tragic, like Wrecker dies.
And right, it wouldn't be Star Wars without that, right? Kind of whether it's already they're dead or it's right before, there are always those heart-to-heart talks, right?
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars is really good at like keeping people alive, bringing people back, but also there's only so much room in the story going forward for characters. Like the Batch doesn't fit in. Yeah. Omega barely fits in, but I just have a feeling she's going to survive because Ahsoka has made it through so much, and they're working her character in the like foreground of the existing canon. So I think they can do that with Omega, but I also don't see Omega lasting too long either, just because there isn't a lot of room for all these big characters down the road. So
doesn't Ahsoka get her own show or no?
Yep.
What if like they introduce Omega in animation and then she's pretty much Baby Yoda for Ahsoka's?
Yeah, the Ahsoka show though. Well, maybe it's assumed. I think it is assumed the Ahsoka show is after the Mandalorian, but it could be before too. Yeah. I guess that's a good point. It could be an Omega Ahsoka show, Master and Apprentice.
Yeah, how sweet would that be?
We'll have to see if she lives in the first place to make it that far.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, that would definitely be a nice twist too if she, makes a sacrifice.
Oh, man, I don't think people will like that. She's pretty well liked character, and they're putting a lot of effort into her. So
hey, people like Darth Maul.
Hey, he's back.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, no spoilers. He's back. He's been gone. He's been all over the place. But yeah, I mean, I think those are my thoughts on it. I can't think of anything else. There's just a lot of good little. It was such a quick, concise episode, but so much was packed into it. And it was really well paced, and I think they snuck a legit like surprise cameo in there for everyone with the Cad Bane.
Yeah, I think for like we said a few weeks, it was kind of a couple like kind of just where are they going, like what's going to happen. But definitely after this one, it's definitely like an exciting like right,
And I like how it tied right into the last episode. Mm-hmm. No real time lapse. Like we got a nice little 2-episode arc here, which with 2, we got Rex, we got Cad Bane. So definitely excited for the next 6 episodes. It's all tying up and expanding at the same time very nicely.
Yeah, and I think they showed like, kind of at least while I don't expect, say, like too big of people to overshadow the whole show, that they're not afraid to bring in these big characters, right?
Yeah.
You know,
I'll be interested to see if Cad Bane sticks around because
that's
I wonder if they'll.
I was gonna say, I thought we may get him kind of like deliver her,
Right.
you know, kind of settle up another kind of like Western kind of, you know what I mean? Maybe raise the price on it, something like that. But I didn't think he would be really apart.
Cad Bane being more involved in the show going forward would mean it goes against my idea of there being like 2 or 3 episodes before they go back to Camino, because he's going to take her back, drop her off, and he's going to get out. Now, if they just like went straight to Camino at this point and like chased him after him, we could get another episode of him. Or if he got pulled into like that ending arc, I just don't know if that's the timing isn't right there. So this might have just been like a real quick cameo by Cad Bane and he's out.
That's what I would say. I think if anything, we probably, like I said, we get him delivering Omega to the Caminoans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kind of thing. But I definitely same thing. Because it's not like they're, you know, like, oh, he's getting away, and that they don't know where he's going.
He's gone.
So they've got to gather themselves. Like they like, you know, and it's not like he's like, oh, Cad Bane, to, you know, some bounty hunter. He don't know the guy's name.
Yeah, they got nothing to go on.
No.
They don't even know the Caminoans are after her. So
yeah, and part of me, I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if he wasn't, you know, the Caminoans bounty hunter? And it was like but I think, you know what I mean? Yeah,
that would be a twist.
That would be, but I, you know, same thing like you said. They don't know where to, you know, where to go.
Yeah, so it'll be exciting, but I think that's all we have for tonight. Thank you for joining and listening. It's always a pleasure, and it's always a good time talking about this show. It's definitely picking up. We are about to hit, like, I would say, even though it's 6 episodes, this is a 14 episode series. So 6 episodes to me, and especially after this episode, we're in like the home stretch.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna be good. It's just gonna be a good time, and can't wait for it to end. Can't wait for it to figure out. Like, there's a lot of things. Like, will there be a second season? Is it just not going to be a second season? I'm thinking that we're not going to get a second season, but
I would not be surprised if they do kind of like, you know, another same animation style. Same,
for sure.
You know, but kind of another story. You know,
right? And I think that's
would not be surprised because it is good. I mean, it's, you know.
That's the thing to do these days. There's so many characters in these universes that they need to tell stories about. There's no reason that someone just gets to have like a 10 season series. Like, we just need the season, the now, if you condense it all, you know, the 6-hour movie, the 7-hour movie that these series now create. And it's so well done. But
yeah, it's cool too, just how they don't, you know, they're not like, oh, this don't fit in. They're just like, no, we're going to connect the dots for you, but this time it's going to be animated, you know, and, you know, just like what we got a Rogue One prequel that's live action though, right? But that's coming. So, I mean, yeah,
it's going to be good.
Cool. Yeah, it's definitely a lot to be excited about. And I think
so much going on.
Yeah.
Well, you all have a good night. That's all we have. Be sure to tune in next Sunday evening. We'll cover the next episode. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. Hopefully it's a good one. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you. And I think we'll see you next week. And appreciate you joining. And we do what we do.
Yeah.
Where is that music? I'm never ready. Ever, ever, ever. Here it is. Found it. Thank you, Enlisted Productions.